I had never once mentioned my monthly salary of $40,000 to my son, despite him witnessing me lead a deliberately modest existence. One evening, he extended an invitation for dinner, along with his wife's parents who were visiting from overseas. I decided this was an opportune moment to gauge their reaction to someone they perceived as impoverished, by feigning the role of a penniless and unsophisticated mother. However, the instant I crossed the threshold of that establishment, the entire dynamic shifted. The events that unfolded that night left my daughter-in-law and her entire family utterly shattered in a way they could never have foreseen. And I assure you, they brought it upon themselves. Allow me to recount the circumstances that led me to that point. Let me reveal my true identity. Because my son, Marcus, who is now 35 years old, has remained entirely unaware of the reality of his mother. To him, I was consistently just the individual who departed early for work, returned home weary each evening, prepared meals, using whatever ingredients were available, a mere employee, perhaps a secretary, someone entirely unremarkable, devoid of any special qualities. And I never once offered any correction to his perception. I never disclosed that I earned $40,000 each month, that I had occupied a senior executive position within a multinational corporation for nearly 20 years, habitually finalizing million-dollar agreements and making strategic decisions that impacted thousands of individuals. What purpose would it have served to tell him? Wealth was never something I felt compelled to display conspicuously. I was raised in an era where intrinsic dignity was paramount, where reticence held more value than empty pronouncements. Consequently, I meticulously guarded my truth. I resided in the same unassuming apartment for an extended period. I utilized the same leather satchel until it was practically falling apart. I frequented discount clothing outlets, prepared meals at home, diligently saved every penny, reinvested all my earnings, and amassed considerable wealth in quietude. Because true influence does not announce itself, true power observes. And I was a keen observer when Marcus contacted me that Tuesday afternoon. His voice bore an unfamiliar tremor, tinged with a nervousness reminiscent of his childhood when he had transgressed. "Mom," he began, "I need to ask a favor. Simone's parents are visiting from overseas. It's their inaugural visit. They wish to meet you. We're dining on Saturday at a restaurant. Please come." There was something in his tone that unsettled me. It lacked the genuine warmth of a son inviting his mother. Instead, it conveyed the desperation of someone seeking to avoid embarrassment, to conform, to present a favorable image. "Do they have any prior knowledge of me?" I inquired with composure. A brief silence ensued. Then Marcus stammered, "I mentioned you work in an office, that you live alone, that you're quite simple, that you don't possess much." There it was, the word simple, as though my entire existence could be distilled into that unfortunate adjective, as though I were an inconvenience he felt obligated to apologize for. I drew a profound breath. "Very well, Marcus, I shall attend." I ended the call and surveyed my living space. The furnishings were aged yet comfortable, the walls devoid of ostentatious artwork, a modest television, nothing that would elicit admiration from anyone. And in that moment, I resolved that if my son perceived me as a woman of limited means, if his wife's parents were anticipating a condescending encounter, then I would deliver precisely what they expected to witness. I would adopt the persona of someone broke, gullible, and utterly desperate. A mother merely subsisting. I desired to experience firsthand how they would treat an individual devoid of possessions. I wished to witness their true dispositions, as I harbored a suspicion. I suspected Simone and her family were the sort who evaluated others based solely on their financial standing, and my intuition has never betrayed me. Saturday arrived. I donned my most unfashionable attire, a shapeless, wrinkled dress of a pale grey hue, the kind one might find in a second-hand shop. Old, worn-out footwear, no jewellery, not even a timepiece. I clutched a faded canvas tote bag, gathered my hair into a dishevelled ponytail, and met my reflection. I presented the image of a woman defeated by life, forgettable, perfect. I summoned a taxi and provided the destination, an upscale establishment located in the city's most exclusive district, the sort where prices are conspicuously absent from the menu, where the cost of a single place setting would exceed the average individual's monthly remuneration. As we journeyed, I experienced a peculiar sensation, a confluence of anticipation and melancholy. Anticipation because I sensed a significant event was imminent. Melancholy because a part of me still clung to the hope that my premonition was erroneous. I harbored a desire that they would treat me with courtesy, that they would exhibit kindness, that they would look beyond my worn apparel. However, the other part of me, the part that had navigated the treacherous waters of corporate dealings for 4 decades, that part was acutely aware of what awaited me. The taxi halted before the restaurant. Warm illumination spilled forth, a doorman stood at attention in pristine white gloves, and elegantly attired patrons entered. I settled the fare, alighted, inhaled deeply, and stepped across the threshold. And there they were. Marcus was positioned beside an elongated table near the windows. He was attired in a dark suit, a crisp white shirt, and gleaming footwear. His demeanour was visibly anxious. Adjacent to him stood Simone, my daughter-in-law. She was elegantly dressed in a tailored cream ensemble, accented with gold, complemented by high heels, her perfectly straightened hair cascading over her shoulders. She presented an image of immaculate composure, as always, yet her gaze was not directed at me. Instead, she was looking towards the entrance with a tense, almost mortified expression. And then I observed them, Simone's parents, already seated at the table awaiting their turn like royalty upon their thrones. The matriarch, Veronica, was adorned in a form-fitting emerald sequined gown, her neck, wrists, and fingers embellished with an array of jewels. Her dark hair was elegantly coiffed into a chignon. She possessed a cool, calculating beauty that commanded intimidation. Beside her sat Franklin, her husband, impeccably clad in a grey suit, a substantial timepiece gracing his wrist, his expression one of stern gravity. Both appeared as though they had stepped directly from the pages of a high-fashion publication. I proceeded towards them at a deliberate, measured pace, my steps appearing hesitant, as though I were apprehensive. Marcus noticed me first, and his countenance underwent a distinct transformation. His eyes widened. He scanned me from head to toe. I observed him swallow. "Mom," he uttered, his voice strained. "You said you'd come." I responded with a timid smile, the kind indicative of a woman unaccustomed to such opulent surroundings. Simone offered a perfunctory kiss on my cheek, a gesture devoid of warmth, almost mechanical. "Mother-in-law, it's a pleasure to see you," she stated, though her eyes conveyed the opposite sentiment. She then introduced me to her parents with an unusual, almost apologetic inflection. "Dad, Mom, this is Marcus's mother." Veronica raised her eyes, her gaze scrutinizing me, and in that very instant I perceived everything: the judgment, the contempt, the profound disappointment. Her eyes meticulously catalogued my wrinkled attire, my antiquated footwear, my canvas tote. She remained silent initially, merely extending a hand. Her touch was cold, fleeting, and weak. "A pleasure," she murmured. Franklin mirrored her action, a weak handshake, a disingenuous smile, a veneer of politeness. I settled into the chair at the far end of the table, positioned as remotely as possible from them, as if I were an unwanted appendage. No one offered assistance in pulling out my chair. No one inquired about my comfort. The waiter materialized, presenting the substantial and exquisitely designed menus, inscribed in French. I opened mine and feigned an inability to comprehend its contents. Veronica observed me. "Do you require assistance with the menu?" she inquired, her smile failing to reach her eyes. "Yes, please," I replied, my voice barely audible. I confess I don't recognize these words. She exhaled audibly and then issued instructions to the waiter. "Something simple," she stipulated, "nothing excessively costly. We must avoid unnecessary extravagance." The statement hung in the air. Franklin offered a nod of assent. Marcus averted his gaze. Simone meticulously manipulated her napkin. A palpable silence descended. I merely observed. Veronica initiated the conversation, discoursing on generalities, the rigors of their journey from abroad, the fatigue of the flight, the stark contrasts of our locale. Subsequently, she subtly steered the discussion towards the subject of wealth. She alluded to their accommodation, a hotel priced at $1,000 per night. She mentioned the luxury vehicle they had procured, naturally. She recounted their shopping excursions. "We acquired a few items," she remarked. "Nothing substantial, merely a few $1,000s. She spoke directly to me, anticipating a reaction, expecting me to be overwhelmed. I simply offered a nod. "How delightful," I responded. "That is indeed lovely," she continued. "You understand, Ara, we have consistently exercised prudence with our finances. We labored diligently. We invested astutely. Consequently, we now possess properties in 3 distinct nations. Franklin presides over significant business enterprises, and I oversee our investment portfolio." She bestowed upon me a smile of distinct superiority. "And you, what precisely do you do?" Her tone, though outwardly pleasant, carried an undercurrent of venom. "I am employed in an office," I replied, lowering my gaze. "I attend to a variety of tasks, paperwork, filing, ordinary duties." Veronica exchanged a knowing glance with Franklin. "Ah, I comprehend. Administrative responsibilities. That is commendable. It is honorable work. All professions are dignified, are they not?" "Indeed," I concurred. The repast arrived, generously portioned dishes adorned with artistic presentations. Veronica meticulously severed her steak. "This dish costs $80, she stated. "However, it is well worth the expense. One must invest in quality. One cannot simply consume anything, can one?" I nodded. "Indeed, you are quite correct." Marcus endeavored to redirect the conversation, discussing professional matters and various projects. Veronica interjected, "Son, does your mother reside alone?" Marcus confirmed with a nod. "Yes, she occupies a modest apartment." Veronica turned her gaze towards me, feigning a look of solicitous concern. "It must be rather challenging, wouldn't you agree, to navigate life independently at your age without substantial support? And does your income adequately cover all your expenditures?" I sensed the insidious trap closing around me. I offered a subdued response. "However, I manage. I exercise frugality wherever possible. My needs are minimal." Veronica emitted a dramatic sigh. "Oh, Ilara, you are remarkably resilient. Truly, I admire women who face adversity alone. Although, naturally, one always aspires to provide one's offspring with more, to afford them a superior existence, but alas, each individual contributes according to their capacity." There it was, the subtle yet devastating indictment. She was implying that I had fallen short in my maternal duties towards my son, that I had failed to bestow upon him the life he merited, painting me as a deficient and impoverished mother. Simone remained fixated on her plate. Marcus's fists were clenched beneath the table, while I maintained a placid smile. Yes, I agreed. Each individual contributes according to their capacity. Veronica resumed her discourse. We have consistently ensured Simone received the finest opportunities. She attended prestigious educational institutions, traveled extensively, acquired fluency in 4 languages. Presently, she holds a distinguished professional position and commands a substantial income. And upon her union with Marcus, we provided them with considerable assistance. We contributed to their home acquisition, and we financed their honeymoon, as that is our inherent disposition. We firmly believe in supporting our offspring. Her gaze fixed upon me intently. And you, were you able to offer Marcus any form of assistance when they married? The question hung in the air, sharp as a honed blade. Not to any significant extent, I replied. I provided them with whatever I could, a token of my affection. Veronica's lips curved into a smile. How thoughtful. Every gesture holds significance, does it not? The monetary value is inconsequential. It is the sentiment that truly matters. At that precise moment, I felt the nascent stirrings of anger within me. This rage was not volatile. It was a contained, frigid force akin to a river frozen beneath ice. I exhaled slowly, maintaining my timid demeanor, and allowed Veronica to continue her monologue, for that is the nature of individuals like her. They converse volubly. They inflate their own importance. They ostentatiously display their perceived superiority. And the more they speak, the more they inadvertently reveal themselves, exposing the inherent void within. Veronica took a delicate sip of her expensive red wine, swirling the glass in her hand with the practiced ease of an aficionado. This particular vintage originates from an exclusive French appellation, she declared. It retails for $200 a bottle, but when one possesses a discerning palate, one does not compromise on quality. Do you partake in wine, Ara? Only on ceremonial occasions, I responded, and generally the most economical variety. I confess limited expertise in such matters. Veronica offered a condescending smile. Oh, do not trouble yourself. Not everyone possesses a cultivated palate. That refined sensibility develops with experience, with travel, with education. Franklin chimed in. Veronica and I have explored vineyards across Europe, South America, and California. We have acquired considerable knowledge. Franklin nodded in agreement. It is a cherished pastime, something we derive great enjoyment from. Simone is also acquiring an appreciation for it. She possesses excellent taste inherited from us. He looked at Simone with evident pride. Simone offered a faint smile. Thank you, Mother. Veronica then turned her attention back to me. And you, Ara, do you engage in any hobbies? Do you pursue any activities during your leisure time? I shrugged noncommittally. I watch television, I cook, I stroll through the park, simple pursuits. Veronica and Franklin exchanged another glance, a look laden with unspoken judgment. How charming, Veronica remarked. Simple diversions possess their own unique allure. Although naturally one always endeavors to achieve more, does one not? To explore the world, to experience novel sensations, to broaden one's cultural horizons. But of course I understand that not everyone is afforded such opportunities. I offered a subdued nod. You are quite correct. Not everyone is afforded such opportunities. The waiter reappeared, presenting desserts, miniature creations that resembled edible works of art. Veronica selected the most extravagant option. This particular confection costs $30, she announced. It is adorned with edible gold leaf. Observe the delicate golden flakes. It is a detail exclusive to the finest establishments. I consumed my dessert, a simpler, less costly offering. In silence, Veronica continued. You know, Ara, I believe it is imperative that we engage in a family discussion, now that we are all assembled. She raised her gaze, her expression transitioning to one of somber, albeit feigned, maternal concern. Marcus is our son-in-law, and we hold him in high esteem. Simone loves him, and we respect their union. However, as parents, our foremost desire is always for our daughter's utmost well-being. Marcus stiffened. Mother, I do not believe this is an appropriate juncture. Veronica raised a hand to silence him. Allow me to conclude, my son. This is of paramount importance. She then addressed me directly. Ara, I comprehend that you exerted your utmost effort in raising Marcus. I recognize that guiding him alone was not an endeavor lacking in challenges, and I genuinely respect you for that. However, Marcus has now progressed to a different phase of his existence. He is married, he carries responsibilities, and indeed, Simone and he deserve to experience stability. Stability? I inquired softly. Yes, Veronica affirmed, financial and emotional equilibrium. We have provided substantial support and will continue to do so. Nevertheless, we also consider it crucial that Marcus is not encumbered by extraneous burdens. Her implication was unequivocal. She was branding me as a burden. Me, his mother-in-law. Simone's gaze was fixed upon her plate as though she yearned for invisibility. Marcus's jaw was clenched tight. Burdens? I echoed. Veronica sighed audibly. I do not wish to appear unfeeling, Alara, but at your current age, living independently with a restricted income, it is only natural that Marcus harbors concerns for your welfare, that he feels an obligation to provide for you, and that is entirely commendable. He is a devoted son. However, we prefer that such anxieties do not adversely impact his marital relationship. Do you grasp my meaning? Perfectly, I responded. Veronica offered a smile of affirmation. I am pleased that you comprehend. This is precisely why we desired this conversation. Franklin and I have contemplated a proposition. She paused for dramatic effect. We are in a position to offer you financial assistance, a modest monthly stipend, something that would enable you to live with greater comfort, thereby alleviating Marcus's considerable worries. Naturally, it would be a modest sum. We cannot perform miracles, but it would represent a form of support. I remained silent, observing her, awaiting further exposition. She continued, and in return, we would respectfully request that you honor Marcus and Simone's personal space, refrain from excessive contact, and permit them the latitude to forge their life together unhindered by external interference. She concluded with a question. What are your thoughts on this arrangement? There it was, the offer, a bribe ingeniously cloaked as benevolence. They intended to compensate me into oblivion, to pay me to vanish from my son's life, so as not to be an inconvenience, so as not to cause their precious daughter any embarrassment with my perceived indigence. Marcus erupted. Mother, that is sufficient. You are not obligated. Veronica interjected. Marcus, exercise restraint. We are engaging in a mature dialogue. Your mother understands, do you not? I calmly retrieved my napkin, delicately dabbed my lips, sipped a glass of water, and allowed the silence to deepen. All eyes were fixed upon me. Veronica with palpable expectation, Franklin with overt arrogance, Simone with palpable shame, Marcus with profound desperation. And then I spoke. My voice resonated differently. It was no longer hesitant. It was no longer diminutive. It was firm, clear, and imbued with a chilling resolve. That is indeed an intriguing proposition, Veronica. Truly most generous of you. Veronica's lips curled into a triumphant smile. I am gratified that you perceive it in that manner. I offered a subtle nod. However, I do have a few inquiries to ensure complete clarity. Veronica blinked, her brow furrowing slightly. Certainly, by all means, ask whatever you deem necessary. I leaned forward infinitesimally. Precisely how much, in your estimation, would constitute a modest monthly allowance? Veronica hesitated, her gaze wavering. Well, we were contemplating approximately $500, perhaps $700, depending on circumstances. I nodded slowly. I see. $700 per month in exchange for my withdrawal from my son's life. Veronica's expression tightened. I would not phrase it in precisely those terms, but yes, that is indeed the implication. She shifted in her chair. Ara, I implore you not to misinterpret our intentions. We merely wish to be of assistance. Of course, I conceded. You offered assistance. How much did you contribute towards the down payment on their home? What was that figure? Veronica nodded with evident pride. $40,000. Ah, $40,000, I mused. How exceedingly generous. And the honeymoon? What was the expenditure for that? $15,000, Veronica stated. It was a 3-week sojourn across Europe. Incredible, utterly unbelievable, I remarked. So, you have collectively invested approximately $55,000 in Marcus and Simone? Veronica offered a smile. Well, when one cherishes one's children, one does not hold back. I nodded slowly. You are quite right. When one cherishes one's children, one does not hold back. However, allow me to ask you something, Veronica. All that investment, all that accumulated wealth, has it truly purchased anything for you? Veronica blinked, a flicker of confusion crossing her features. Are you implying, for instance, that it has purchased respect? I continued. Has it garnered genuine affection, or has it merely procured mere compliance? The atmosphere within the room palpably shifted. Veronica's smile evaporated. Excuse me, my tone had escalated, acquiring a sharper edge. You have devoted the entirety of this evening to discussions of monetary value, of the cost of various items, of your expenditures and your financial holdings. Yet you have not once inquired about my well-being, whether I am content if I am experiencing any discomfort, or if I desire companionship. You have, in essence, quantified my worth, and by your estimation, I am valued at $700 per month. Veronica retorted defensively. I did no such thing? Yes, I interrupted her firmly. Yes, you did. From the moment of my arrival, you have meticulously measured my perceived value through the lens of your financial capacity. And you know what I have discerned, Veronica? I have discovered that individuals who exclusively discuss monetary matters are those who possess the least understanding of true intrinsic worth. Franklin interjected, a note of annoyance in his voice. I believe you are misconstruing my wife's intentions. I met his gaze directly. And what precisely are her intentions? To regard me with patronizing pity? To subject me to humiliation throughout this entire dinner? To offer me meager alms in the hope that I will simply disappear? Franklin opened his mouth, but no words emerged. Marcus appeared pallid. Mother, please. I looked at him. No, Marcus, I implore you, do not. I have concluded my period of silence. I placed my napkin deliberately on the table. I reclined in my chair, my posture no longer timid, no longer diminished. I met Veronica's gaze directly. She held my stare for a fleeting second before averting her eyes, a clear sign of discomfort. Something had irrevocably altered, and she sensed it. Every individual present felt it. Veronica, I stated, you uttered a remarkably insightful observation moments ago. You remarked upon admiring women who navigate challenges independently, who exhibit resilience. Veronica nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Then permit me to pose a question. Have you yourself ever faced adversity alone? Have you ever engaged in professional endeavors without the financial backing of your spouse? Have you ever meticulously constructed something through your own dedicated efforts? Devoid of familial financial influence? Veronica stammered. I have achieved my own successes. Such as? I inquired, genuine curiosity prompting my question. Veronica adjusted her hair, her composure wavering. I manage our investment portfolio. I oversee our various properties. I make critical decisions pertaining to our business ventures. I nodded slowly. Businesses your husband established, properties acquired through joint efforts, investments funded by his generated income. Or am I mistaken? Franklin interjected, his tone laced with irritation. That is hardly a fair assessment. My wife's professional contributions are as significant as my own. Undoubtedly, I replied calmly. I harbor no doubt regarding her industriousness. However, there exists a fundamental distinction between managing existing wealth and generating it from its inception, between overseeing an inherited empire and diligently constructing it, piece by painstaking piece. Would you not agree? Veronica pressed her lips together, her expression hardening. I fail to comprehend the direction this conversation is taking, Ara. Allow me to elucidate, I responded. 40 years ago, I was a young woman of 23. I held a secretarial position within a modest enterprise. My remuneration was precisely the minimum wage. I resided in a rented room. My sustenance consisted of the most economical fare obtainable, and I was utterly, completely alone. Marcus stared at me, transfixed. I had never before divulged these specifics to him. I continued. One day I discovered I was pregnant. The father vanished without a trace. My family disowned me. I was faced with a stark choice, to persevere or to capitulate. I elected to persevere. I continued working until the final stages of my pregnancy. I returned to my employment a mere fortnight after Marcus's birth. A kindly neighbour assumed responsibility for his care during daylight hours. I toiled for 12 hours each day. I paused, taking a measured sip of water. An unbroken silence enveloped the table. I did not remain in my secretarial role. I pursued my studies during the evenings. I enrolled in various courses. I mastered the English language through diligent study at the public library. I acquired proficiency in accounting, finance, and administrative management. I became an expert in disciplines for which I received no formal instruction. All of this achieved independently, all while single-handedly raising a child, all while meticulously managing rent payments, sustenance, medical expenses, and the acquisition of clothing. Veronica was fixated on her dinner plate, her usual haughtiness visibly diminishing. And do you know what unfolded, Veronica? I inquired, my voice steady. I progressed incrementally, from a clerical assistant to an administrative aide, then to a project lead, and from there to a department head, and ultimately to a directorial position. It took me 2 decades. 2 decades of unwavering dedication and sacrifices you cannot possibly fathom. But I achieved it. And would you care to know my current remuneration? Veronica simply shook her head. $40,000 each month. An absolute hush descended, as if the very mechanisms of existence had been momentarily suspended. Marcus nearly dropped his cutlery. Simone's eyes widened in astonishment. Franklin wore an expression of profound incredulity, while Veronica remained frozen, her mouth slightly agape. 40,000, I reiterated, every single month for nearly 20 years. That amounts to nearly $10 million in cumulative earnings throughout my professional journey, and that excludes any dividends, any performance-based bonuses, and any equity stakes in the company. Veronica blinked several times, a flicker of confusion crossing her features. No, I don't grasp this. You truly earn 40,000 monthly? That is correct, I responded with an air of calm assurance. I hold the position of Regional Director of Operations for a global enterprise. My purview encompasses 5 distinct nations. I manage financial allocations in the hundreds of millions of dollars. My decisions impact upwards of 10,000 individuals. I execute agreements that would necessitate extensive legal counsel for you to comprehend, and I perform these duties daily. Marcus appeared noticeably pale. Mother, why did you never disclose this to me? I regarded him with affection, because it was unnecessary for you to know, my son, because I desired for you to cultivate an appreciation for diligence, not merely for wealth, because my intention was for you to develop into a person of substance, not an inheritor, because affluence can be a corrupting influence, and I was determined to shield you from its grasp. Simone then interjected, her voice a whisper. Then why do you reside in that modest apartment? Why do you wear such unassuming attire? Why do you not pilot a high-end automobile? A smile played on my lips. Because I have no compulsion to impress anyone. Because genuine prosperity is not ostentatiously displayed. Because I discovered that the more one possesses, the less imperative it becomes to demonstrate it. I then turned my gaze back to Veronica. That is precisely why I presented myself in this manner this evening. That is why I adopted the pretense of impecuniosity. That is why I behaved as a destitute and naive woman. I wished to observe your reaction to me under the assumption that I possessed nothing. I sought to ascertain your true character, and believe me, Veronica, I witnessed it quite clearly. Veronica's complexion deepened to a flush of shame, anger, and mortification. This is preposterous. If you were earning such a substantial income, we would be aware of it. Marcus would know. Why would he ever believe you to be impoverished? Because I allowed him to believe it, I stated. Because I deliberately abstained from discussing my professional life. Because my lifestyle is deliberately unpretentious. Because the income I generate, I reinvest, I conserve, I cultivate its growth. I do not squander it on gaudy adornments or conspicuous dining establishments. Franklin cleared his throat. Nevertheless, that does not negate the fact that you were discourteous, that you fundamentally misconstrued our intentions. Misconstrued? I met his gaze directly. Did I misinterpret when you labeled me a burden to Marcus? Did I misinterpret when you offered me $700 to vanish from his life? Did I misinterpret every condescending remark about my clothing, my occupation, my existence? Franklin offered no rebuttal. Neither did Veronica. I rose to my feet. All eyes were upon me. Allow me to impart a truth that, evidently, no one here has ever conveyed to you. Wealth does not confer grace. It does not bestow genuine enlightenment. It does not cultivate compassion. You may possess affluence, perhaps considerable amounts, but you lack even a trace of what truly holds value. Veronica also rose, her demeanor radiating fury. And you do? You who fabricated falsehoods, who deceived us, who made us appear utterly foolish. I did not render you foolish, I replied with chilling detachment. You achieved that entirely on your own. I merely provided the opportunity for your true natures to manifest, and you did so with remarkable clarity. Simone's eyes welled with tears. Mother-in-law, I had no idea. I am aware, I interrupted. You were unaware. However, your parents possessed precise knowledge of their actions. They were cognizant of their intent to humiliate me, and they relished it, until they discovered that the indigent woman they disparaged possessed more financial resources than they, and now they are utterly bewildered. Veronica trembled. You have no right. I have every right, I asserted, because I am the mother of your son-in-law, because I merit respect, not by virtue of my wealth, not by virtue of my profession, but because I am a human being. a fact you seemingly disregarded throughout this entire repast. Marcus stepped forward. Mother, please, let us depart. I held up a hand. Not just yet, my son, I have not concluded. I fixed Veronica with a final gaze. You extended an offer of assistance amounting to $700 monthly. Allow me to extend a reciprocal proposition. I shall present you with $1 million immediately, provided you can substantiate that you have ever treated an individual with kindness who lacked financial means. Veronica's mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. Precisely, I concluded. You are incapable of doing so because, in your estimation, individuals are only valuable based on their bank balances. And therein lies the fundamental divergence between us. I meticulously constructed my prosperity. You merely expend yours. I earned regard. You purchase it. I possess inherent dignity. You possess mere financial accounts. I retrieved my weathered canvas tote. From it, I produced a black platinum credit card and placed it upon the table before Veronica. This is my corporate account, an unrestricted limit. Settle the entirety of this evening's expenses, including a substantial gratuity. Consider it a token of appreciation from a destitute and guileless maternal figure. Veronica regarded the card as if it were a venomous serpent. Its black, lustrous surface, my name elegantly inscribed in silver lettering, Alla Sterling, Regional Director. Her hand quivered slightly as she retrieved it. She turned it over, examined it, then looked at me. Her eyes, once brimming with an air of superiority, now reflected something entirely different, something I had never anticipated witnessing in her: apprehension. I have no need for your funds, she stated, her voice strained. I am aware, I replied, but I equally had no need for your pity. Yet you generously dispensed it throughout the entire evening. Accept it, then, as a gesture of courtesy or perhaps even basic civility, qualities that you evidently failed to acquire despite your extensive European sojourns. Franklin tapped the table lightly. Enough. This has escalated beyond reason. You are exhibiting disrespect. Respect? I echoed. How fascinating that you invoke that particular term now. Where was your respect when your wife inquired if my earnings were sufficient for subsistence? Where was it when she insinuated I was a burden to my son? Where was it when she proposed to compensate me for my disappearance? Franklin's jaw tightened. Veronica was merely attempting to be helpful. Veronica was attempting to exert control, I corrected. She sought to ensure that the impoverished matriarch would not tarnish her daughter's impeccable image. She aimed to neutralize the perceived weakest link in her carefully constructed chain. The fundamental error she made, however, was selecting the wrong link. I glanced at Simone. Her head was bowed, her hands clasped in her lap, trembling. Simone, I murmured softly. She looked up, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I truly am. I didn't know. Your parents do not possess the capacity to complete that sentiment, I interrupted. Because you did know, perhaps not about my financial standing, but you were undoubtedly aware of your parents' modus operandi. You are cognizant of their treatment of individuals they deem beneath them, and you offered no intervention. Simone sobbed. I wanted to speak, but they are my parents. I understand, I replied. And Marcus is my son, yet I afforded him the autonomy to make his own choices. I permitted him to select his life partner, his career path, his journey, because that is the essence of love, offering freedom, not imposing control, not wielding wealth, not employing manipulation. Marcus drew nearer to me. Mother, please forgive me. Forgive me for never inquiring, for making assumptions, for believing. His voice faltered. I embraced him. There is no need for apologies, my son. I acted as I did for a deliberate purpose. I wished for you to cultivate independence, to value what is truly important, to forge your own achievements without relying on my financial backing. But you made me feel compelled to protect you. Marcus mentioned that I needed to be concerned about you, that you were delicate. I am aware, I responded, and it was not misguided of you to perceive that, for that is how one learns to cherish, to be concerned for others, to cultivate empathy. These are invaluable lessons that money simply cannot procure. Marcus held me tightly. I am so profoundly sorry. Veronica remained standing, rigid, observing the tableau with a mixture of bewilderment and suppressed fury. This changes nothing, she finally declared. You perpetrated a deceit. You misled us. You arrived here with ulterior motives. Your conduct was disingenuous. That is accurate, I conceded, nodding. I did act. I feigned a persona inconsistent with my reality. Precisely the same behavior you exhibit on a daily basis. What is the implication of that statement? Franklin inquired. It signifies that you conceal yourselves behind your accumulated wealth, your jewelry, your international excursions, and every other purchased commodity. Yet internally, you are profoundly hollow. You engage in superficial exchanges. You possess no genuine intellectual curiosities. You have nothing substantive to offer beyond your financial statements. Veronica emitted a dry, sardonic chuckle. Coming from someone who engaged in deception throughout the entire evening, that borders on hypocrisy. Perhaps, I acknowledged, but my deception served to expose the truth, your truth, and now you are unable to conceal it. You are aware that I perceived your actions, that I felt the sting of every remark, that I meticulously catalogued every insult, cloaked as well-intentioned counsel, and that I will carry these memories indefinitely. The waiter hesitantly approached. Excuse me, would you care for anything further? Franklin abruptly shook his head. Kindly present the bill. The waiter nodded and discreetly withdrew. Veronica resumed her seat, defeated. Her posture, once indicative of elegant bearing, now conveyed the dejection of someone who had experienced a significant loss. And it was not a financial deficit. It was a loss of dominance. Ara, she said, her tone softening, losing its aggressive edge. I do not wish for this incident to jeopardize the relationship between our families. Marcus and Simone share a deep affection. They have established a life together. We cannot permit this. Permit what? I interjected. Permit this to derail your machinations. Permit this to reveal your authentic sentiments. It is far too late for such considerations, Veronica. The damage has already been inflicted. But we can rectify this, she insisted. We can commence anew. No, I interrupted her firmly. We cannot, because I now comprehend your true nature, and you comprehend mine, and that fundamental truth cannot be expunged by hollow apologies or disingenuous smiles. You treated me with utter contempt, and you did so with evident pleasure because you believed you could. Franklin cleared his throat. You were the one who engaged in deception. You instigated this entire scenario. You are correct, I nodded. I instigated this because I needed to ascertain the reality. I needed to confirm my existing suspicions, that you are not individuals of integrity, that your affluence does not elevate you in moral standing, that you are precisely the sort of people who disdain others for not possessing comparable material wealth. Veronica dabbed at a tear. We are not malevolent individuals. Perhaps not, I conceded, but you are unequivocally not benevolent, and there exists a profound chasm between those two classifications. The waiter returned, placing the bill in the center of the table. No one reached for it. Veronica gazed at the black card still in her hand, then met my eyes. I will not be utilizing your card, she declared. We shall settle our own expenses, as is our customary practice. Excellent, I replied. Then retain that card as a memento, a perpetual reminder that appearances can be deceiving, that the woman you dismissed with scorn throughout the evening possesses more than you will ever attain. I am not solely referring to monetary assets, of course. Veronica placed the card back on the table. I do not want it, nor do I desire your moralistic discourse. I pushed it back towards her. Keep it nonetheless, for a premonition suggests you will find it useful. There will come a time when you encounter someone akin to myself, an individual who adopts a guise of lesser status, and you will repeat the same misjudgment, for individuals like you rarely learn. Franklin extracted his wallet, revealing several credit cards, all golden, all gleaming. He selected one and placed it atop the bill. The waiter took it and departed. The ensuing minutes were enveloped in a profound, palpable silence. Simone wept discreetly. Marcus held my hand. Veronica stared fixedly at the wall. Franklin perused his phone, actively avoiding any eye contact. The waiter reappeared. Sir, your card has been declined. Franklin's head snapped up. How could that be? The waiter reiterated. Declined? Do you possess an alternative method of payment? Franklin's face flushed. This is preposterous. That card possesses an exceptionally high credit limit. It must be a system anomaly. The waiter shrugged. I can attempt the transaction again if you wish. Franklin handed him another card. The waiter retreated. Veronica glanced nervously at her husband. What has transpired? I am uncertain, Franklin responded irritably. It must be some administrative error at the bank. Perhaps they've temporarily suspended the account for security reasons. Such occurrences are not uncommon when traveling. I offered a nod of feigned understanding. Indeed, such inconveniences do arise. How unfortunate. The waiter reappeared once more. I apologize, sir. This transaction has also been declined. Franklin abruptly stood. This is utterly unacceptable. I shall contact the bank immediately. He strode purposefully out of the establishment. Veronica remained seated, a picture of shame and humiliation. This has never happened to us before, she murmured. Never? What exceptionally unfortunate timing, I commented with an absence of emotion. Marcus surveyed the bill. Mother, I can... No, I interrupted him. You will not be responsible for any portion of this expenditure. I retrieved my own wallet, a simple, well-worn leather item. From it I produced another card. This one lacked the ostentatious sheen of the others. It was transparent, crafted from a substantial metal alloy, a card possessed by less than 1% of the global population. I placed it on the table directly in front of Veronica. She gazed at it, her eyes widening in recognition. That's a Centurion card. Precisely, I affirmed, an exclusive offering from American Express, by invitation only, requiring a minimum annual expenditure of $250,000, a $5,000 annual fee solely for its possession, and associated benefits that are beyond imagination. Veronica remained silent. The waiter carefully collected the card, handling it as if it were a sacred artifact. He returned in under 2 minutes. Thank you, Miss Sterling. The transaction is complete. Would you care for a receipt? It is unnecessary, I replied. The waiter inclined his head and departed. Veronica continued to stare at the empty space where the card had rested. I stood, gathered my antiquated wallet and my canvas tote, and cast one final look at Veronica. The meal was delightful. Thank you for recommending this establishment, and thank you for affording me the clarity to discern your true character. You have saved me considerable time, considerable energy, and an abundance of future disappointments. Veronica finally raised her head. Her eyes were red, not from weeping, but from a simmering, contained fury. This is not the end of it, she declared, her voice trembling. You cannot simply humiliate us and depart as though nothing has transpired. Simone is our daughter. Marcus is our son-in-law. We are still family. You will be compelled to encounter us. You are correct, I smiled. I shall indeed encounter you at significant family events. However, my perception of you will be irrevocably altered. I will no longer ponder your opinions of me. I am now fully apprised, and you will be aware of my awareness. You will live with this knowledge. Every instance you behold me, every pretense of affability you display, you will recall this evening. Franklin rejoined the table, his phone in his hand, his countenance ashen. There appears to be a complication with the accounts, he stated. A temporary security measure has been implemented. It should be resolved by tomorrow. He surveyed the table. Has the bill been settled? Yes, Veronica replied without meeting his gaze. She settled it? Franklin looked at me, his pride visibly eroded. Thank you, he murmured, the words barely audible. You are most welcome, I responded. Is that not the very purpose of family? To provide mutual assistance, particularly when one requires a modest supplementary sum, say $700, or in this particular instance, $800, which was the cost of this evening's repast. Franklin closed his eyes. Veronica clenched her fists in her lap. Marcus approached. Mother, let us depart, I implore you. It is sufficient. I met his gaze. You are quite right. It is indeed sufficient. I turned to Simone. She was still weeping softly. Simone, I said gently. She lifted her head. You are not to bear responsibility for your parents' actions. No one selects their family, but you do choose your conduct, your demeanor towards others, and the principles by which you will raise your own offspring in the future. Simone nodded through her tears. I am so sorry, she whispered again. Cease offering apologies, I advised her. Simply learn. Learn that financial standing does not define an individual's worth, that humility is not a manifestation of weakness, that extending respect to others incurs no cost, and that if you are ever blessed with children, impress upon them the importance of discerning the true character of individuals, rather than focusing solely on their financial portfolios. Simone's sobs intensified. Marcus enveloped her in an embrace. Veronica averted her gaze. Franklin consulted his phone once more, avoiding all eye contact. I made my way towards the exit. After a few steps, I paused, turned back, and addressed Veronica one final time. Veronica, one additional observation. Do you recall your assertion of proficiency in 4 languages? Veronica frowned. What relevance does that hold? Merely a point of curiosity, I replied. In which of those linguistic proficiencies did you acquire the ability to demonstrate kindness? Because it is abundantly clear that it was not in any of them. Veronica opened her mouth, but no sound emerged. Precisely, I stated, one can command 100 different tongues and still utter nothing of consequence. I exited the restaurant. Marcus walked alongside me. The cool night air caressed my face. I inhaled deeply, feeling as though an immense burden had been lifted, not a physical weight, but an emotional one, the burden of pretense, of forbearance, of enforced silence. Marcus took my arm. Mother, are you well? Perfectly so, I replied. Better than ever, in fact. And you, Marcus? Marcus sighed. I am uncertain. I am processing everything. I find it difficult to comprehend that you never apprised me of your professional standing, your financial resources, your numerous accomplishments. I stopped and met his eyes. Does this distress you? He quickly shook his head. No, certainly not. I am immensely proud, incredibly proud, but I also feel rather foolish, blind even. You are not foolish, I assured him. You merely perceived what I wished for you to perceive, and I orchestrated that deliberately because I needed you to mature without depending on me. without the assurance of a financial safety net awaiting you. I needed you to strive, to labor, to value every achievement you attained through your own efforts. Marcus nodded. I understand, but now I also comprehend why you never expressed dissatisfaction, why you never sought assistance, why you always appeared so composed, because you required nothing. I smiled. I required many things, my son, only none of them could be procured with currency. I needed to witness your growth, your development into a man of integrity, your capacity to make judicious decisions. And I succeeded in that, even in marrying Simone, he inquired tentatively. Even in marrying Simone, I replied. She is not her parents. She possesses the capacity to learn. She can evolve, but that hinges on her and on you, on the foundation you construct for your union, on the values you mutually choose to uphold. Marcus remained silent, absorbed in thought. A taxi pulled up before us. I had summoned a ride share as we exited. I opened the door. Marcus halted me. Mother, may I pose a question? Of course. Why did you do it? Why did you come here feigning indigence? Why did you not simply disclose the truth from the outset? I closed the taxi door and turned to him. Because I needed to ascertain the facts, my son. I needed to confirm whether my suspicions were accurate, whether Simone's family was truly as I had envisioned, and regrettably, my perceptions were indeed correct. Marcus lowered his gaze. I am sorry. You have no cause for apology on their behalf, I told him, but you must now decide what kind of husband you aspire to be, what sort of father you envision yourself becoming in the future. What do you mean? He asked. I mean that you have just been presented with two vastly dissimilar approaches to managing wealth and influence, the method employed by your in-laws and my own. They wield it for control, for humiliation, to assert dominance. I utilize it to secure autonomy, to offer aid discreetly, to maintain tranquility. The choice of path is yours to make. Marcus slowly nodded. I understand. I opened the taxi door once more and entered. I rolled down the window. Marcus drew nearer. Mother, one final inquiry. Tell me, I prompted. Will you ever find it within yourself to forgive Veronica and Franklin? I contemplated for a moment. Forgiveness does not equate to forgetting, I replied, nor does it imply an endorsement of repeated offences. I might extend forgiveness at some future juncture, should I witness a genuine transformation in their character when they begin to perceive individuals as fellow human beings rather than as mere numerical assets. But until such a time, my interactions will be characterized by polite distance and extreme caution. And me? Marcus asked. Do you forgive me for not inquiring, for making assumptions, for allowing this dinner to transpire? I looked at him with tenderness. Son, there is nothing to forgive. You acted in accordance with what you believed was right. You wished for your families to meet. That is a commendable sentiment. What transpired thereafter was not your culpability. It was theirs, and to a minor extent mine as well, for I chose to engage in their game. Marcus managed a faint smile. You won. We won. I nodded. But victory does not bring me elation. I feel weary and disheartened, for I have confirmed a reality I had hoped to disprove. Some individuals will never undergo transformation. Certain familial bonds are irrevocably damaged, irrespective of financial standing. There exists profound emptiness that no amount of wealth can ameliorate. The individual driving the taxi cleared his throat. Madam, he inquired, shall we depart? Indeed, I responded. Kindly grant me a moment. I glanced at Marcus. Go to Simone, speak with her, lend an ear to her, offer your support. However, also be candid. Express your feelings from this evening. Articulate your expectations of her family and of her. For if you fail to establish boundaries now, This pattern will perpetuate indefinitely. I shall, Marcus pledged. I love you, Mother. His affirmation carried a weight it hadn't before, amplified by a newfound understanding of my true character. He saw me as remarkable. A gentle smile touched my lips. I love you too, my son. Always have and always will. My financial situation is irrelevant to that truth, for love is beyond any price. It's a valuable lesson Veronica and Franklin will likely never grasp. Marcus stepped away from the waiting vehicle. I signaled the driver. Are we ready to proceed? The taxi began to move. I observed through the window as Marcus retraced his steps toward the restaurant, his posture suggesting contemplation, his shoulders drawn inward. He was likely preparing to seek out Simone, to confront her parents, and to engage in challenging dialogue. A sense of pride swelled within me, recognizing this as a mark of his burgeoning maturity. He was absorbing lessons, actively choosing to rise above the discordant example he had just witnessed. The taxi navigated the city's illuminated thoroughfares with haste. I closed my eyes, replaying the evening's events, every exchange, every glance, every moment fraught with tension. A question arose. Had I acted appropriately? Had I been overly severe, excessively cruel, or driven by retribution? Yet memories of veiled barbs, patronizing remarks, and dismissive looks swiftly countered this doubt. No, I concluded, my actions were justified. I had simply spoken my truth. Finally, the taxi traversed the deserted nocturnal avenues. Building lights blurred past the glass. I retrieved my unassuming mobile device from my aged canvas tote. It was unadorned, devoid of any ostentatious embellishment. 3 unread messages awaited me, one from my assistant regarding a Monday appointment, another from a colleague celebrating a secured contract, and a third from an unfamiliar number. I opened the latter. It was from Simone. Mother-in-law, it read, I implore your forgiveness. I was unaware of my parents' true nature. I am deeply ashamed. I wish to speak with you if you would permit it. I studied the message for an extended period. Contemplating a reply, I ultimately decided against it. She required more time, a period of personal reflection. Apologies born of immediate remorse often lack genuine substance. Profound transformations necessitate time, introspection, and consistent dedication. I set the phone aside. The taxi driver, catching my reflection in the rearview mirror, inquired, Pardon my presumption, ma'am, but is everything all right? I met his gaze. Yes, everything is well. Why do you ask? You entered the vehicle with considerable quietude, he explained. Typically, patrons departing that establishment are animated, discussing their enjoyable meals. You emerged as if from a conflict. I offered a faint smile. Something akin to that. Was it that discernible? He offered a slight shrug. 20 years I've been a cabbie. I've encountered it all. Inebriated individuals, disputes, separations, familial discord. And you possess that particular demeanor, the look of someone who has finally voiced something held within for years. You are remarkably perceptive, I remarked. It's my livelihood, he replied. Besides, it helps pass the hours. Would you care to elaborate? You are under no obligation, of course, but sometimes speaking to an impartial observer can be cathartic. Someone detached from the situation, unburdened by personal knowledge of you. The offer was appealing, but I shook my head. Thank you, but I believe I have sufficiently articulated my thoughts for today. He nodded. I understand, but allow me to share a sentiment. Whatever transpired within, I am confident you acted correctly. Your composure, the absence of tears or outward distress, indicates a process of internalization. It signifies you spoke your truth, and truth, regardless of its immediate impact, ultimately brings solace. His words were unexpected. He appeared to be in his 60s, with flecks of grey in his hair and hands that spoke of manual labor. a man of simple means, much like the persona I had adopted earlier. Do you place faith in truth? I inquired. I believe in sincerity, he responded. Not necessarily an absolute truth, as it can be subjective, but sincerity is unwavering. It is articulating one's genuine feelings without pretense or deception, even if it causes discomfort, awkwardness, or personal cost. I nodded in agreement. You are quite right. My wife consistently observed that I was overly direct, that I spoke without a filter, inadvertently causing hurt. Perhaps she was correct, yet she also affirmed that she never doubted my sincerity. Knowing my words were authentic, uncalculated, and unmanipulated. A smile flickered. She sounds like a remarkable woman. She was, he confirmed. She passed away 5 years ago. I'm truly sorry, I offered sincerely. He dismissed my sympathy with a shake of his head. No need. We shared 40 years together. 40 years filled with honesty, disagreements, reconciliations, laughter, and tears. And never did I go to bed questioning her true sentiments, for she always expressed them, as did I. That is a profound gift. Indeed, I murmured, it is a gift. The taxi came to a halt at a traffic signal. May I pose a rather personal inquiry? The driver ventured. Please do. Are you affluent? The question, delivered with such directness, caught me off guard. Why do you ask? Because, he explained, you arrived from a restaurant where the per-person charge was $1,000, yet your attire suggests a preference for discount retailers. Your handbag appears aged, your footwear worn, yet your speech is that of an executive. Your bearing conveys authority, and you paid for my services with newly minted currency extracted from a wallet that has seen better days. You are most observant, I commented. Part of the profession, he reiterated. So am I. That, I replied, depends on your definition of wealth. If you refer to financial assets, then yes, I possess ample means, more than enough. If you speak of contentment, I also have tranquility, good health, a son I cherish, and work that ignites my passion. By those measures I am exceedingly rich. He nodded, a look of understanding settling upon his features. I sensed there was more to you. Truly affluent individuals have no need to ostentatiously display their fortune. The light turned green and the taxi resumed its journey. And what transpired at the restaurant? He inquired with a hint of curiosity. If you do not find the question intrusive, I feigned destitution, I confessed, to ascertain their true disposition towards me. He let out a hearty laugh. Astounding, and how did they treat you? Like refuse, I stated flatly. They subjected me to humiliation, they offered me charity, they treated me as if I were invisible, less than human. His laughter ceased abruptly. I am sorry to hear that. It must have been rather painful, I conceded, but it also corroborated a long-held belief that my assessment of those individuals was accurate, that they were unworthy of my time or respect. And now they are acutely aware of it. They know who I am, and they will carry that burden of shame. The taxi driver let out a low whistle. That sounds like it was quite the encounter. It was, I affirmed with a smile. Undeniably so. We reached my apartment building. It was a modest middle-class structure, neither opulent nor imposing, but a comfortable and secure dwelling. The driver parked and surveyed the building. You reside here? I confirmed. Indeed, I do. He shook his head in surprise. You are truly exceptional. Most individuals of means opt for exclusive enclaves, residences boasting doormen, private security, fitness centers, and swimming pools. You live like an ordinary person. I am an ordinary person, I clarified. I simply possess more financial resources than many. However, that does not fundamentally alter my identity or elevate me above others. Money is merely a tool, not a defining characteristic. He smiled. I wish more people subscribed to that philosophy. The world would be a far better place. I retrieved my wallet. What is the fare? $30, he replied. I handed him $100 bill. Keep the remainder, ma'am. This is excessive. Not at all, I insisted. You provided a listening ear, offered valuable perspective, and reminded me of the existence of genuine decency. That is worth far more than $70. He accepted the bill with careful consideration. Thank you, truly, thank you. And thank you, I reciprocated. Guard that sincerity. It is a rare and precious commodity. Do not let it diminish. I shall not, he promised. I exited the taxi and closed the door. He lowered the window. One final thought, ma'am. Whatever transpired this evening, do not harbor regret. Do not apologize for it. For individuals like yourself, those who articulate their truth, even when it causes pain, are the agents of global change. Progress occurs incrementally, one conversation at a time. I smiled. Thank you. I will certainly keep that in mind. The taxi departed. I stood before my building, gazing up at the 5th floor window. The light was off, the apartment dark and silent, awaiting my return. I entered the building and ascended the stairs, deliberately avoiding the elevator to maintain my physical activity. Reaching my door, I produced my keys, the same set I had possessed for 15 years. I unlocked the door. The apartment felt cool and empty. I switched on the light. All was in its designated place. The unpretentious living room, the compact kitchen, the dining area with its mismatched chairs, the walls devoid of ostentatious artwork. A profound sense of peace enveloped me, for this was my sanctuary, authentically mine. It was not acquired for outward display, nor furnished to impress, but simply a space where I could exist without artifice or pretense. I removed my worn shoes, shed the creased grey dress, and donned comfortable attire, followed by soft, familiar pajamas. I prepared a cup of tea and settled onto the sofa, turning on the television. The news held little interest. I switched it off, content to sit in quiet contemplation, processing my thoughts and emotions. For the first time in many years, I experienced a profound sense of liberation. Freedom from the necessity of pretense, freedom from silence, freedom from passive acceptance, and freedom from diminishing my own worth. That evening, I had not only exposed Veronica and Franklin, but had also liberated myself from external expectations, societal judgment, and the burden of concealing my true self. This liberation was, in its essence, invaluable, far exceeding the sum of my financial assets. My phone vibrated. Another message, this time from Marcus. Mom, did you arrive home safely? I smiled and promptly responded, Yes, son, I am home and resting comfortably. His reply was instantaneous. I love you. Thank you for everything, for being who you are, for guiding me, for never giving up. I closed my eyes, a single tear tracing a path down my cheek. It was not a tear of sorrow, but of relief, of profound affection, and of deep gratitude. I love you too, I typed, always. I set the phone aside. Sipping my tea, I surveyed my modest apartment, my haven, my embodiment of truth, and I smiled. Ultimately, the quantity of my wealth or the heights of my professional achievements were inconsequential. What truly mattered was this present moment, this internal tranquility, this unvarnished honesty with myself. Sunday dawned early, as was my habit. 4 decades of dedicated work had ingrained in me a rhythm attuned to the sunrise. Despite it being a day of rest, my body was disinclined to prolonged slumber. I brewed a strong black coffee and settled by the window, mug in hand. I observed the city awakening, merchants opening their stalls, individuals embarking on their daily routines. Life proceeded, seemingly indifferent to personal dramas. My phone began to ring. It was a familiar number. Marcus, I answered. Good morning, son. His voice conveyed a weariness. Mum, I need to speak with you. Has something occurred? Much, he replied. Simone and I engaged in an extensive conversation last night. Her parents were present. It was quite an intense experience. I took a sip of coffee. Tell me. Marcus exhaled deeply. After you departed, I returned to the restaurant. Veronica and Franklin were still there, awaiting the functioning of their credit cards. It was a mortifying situation for them. Simone was distraught, weeping, and I felt an overwhelming surge of anger, more potent than I have experienced in years. I waited in silence. He continued. I divulged my every sentiment from that dinner. I expressed my profound shame regarding their behavior, their deplorable treatment of my mother, and the unacceptability of their conduct. I conveyed that such treatment would not be tolerated again. And what was their response? I inquired. Initially, Marcus explained, Veronica attempted to justify their actions, claiming they merely sought to safeguard Simone, to ensure my familial stability, and that their intentions were not malicious. Franklin asserted I was overreacting, that the dinner had been entirely unremarkable, and that your reaction was disproportionate. I tightened my grip on the mug. Predictable. But then, Marcus continued, Simone intervened. She admonounced her parents, stating they were in error, that their actions had been cruel, and that she had witnessed every disparaging remark, every disdainful glance, every veiled insult, and felt ashamed to be their daughter in that moment. His voice faltered. Mum, I had never witnessed Simone confront her parents in such a manner. A faint smile touched my lips. That is a positive development. It indicates a awakening. Veronica became hysterical, Marcus recounted. She accused Simone of ingratitude, proclaiming their sacrifices for her, the privileged life they had provided, and asserting Simone had no right to judge them. Franklin supported her, suggesting we were being manipulated by you, that you had orchestrated the entire affair to discredit them. I emitted a dry, mirthless laugh. Naturally, the fault lies with me. That accusation, Marcus stated, provoked their greatest ire. I concurred, affirming that you had indeed planned it, but that they had readily succumbed to the ploy because their true nature aligned with it, because they genuinely mistreat those they deem inferior. You merely provided an opportunity for them to reveal themselves, and they seized it with perfect execution. Well stated, I murmured. Thank you. I learned that from you. A brief silence followed, then Marcus continued. Mum, I must convey something to you. Last night I made a resolute decision. Simone and I will establish firm boundaries with her parents. We do not intend to sever all ties, but we will implement clear guidelines. No commentary on financial matters, no comparisons, no attempts to dictate our lives. Should they fail to adhere to these stipulations, they must accept the ensuing consequences. And did they agree? I asked. No, he replied. They departed in a state of fury, labeling us ungrateful and predicting future regret, stating they would not be available should we require assistance. Franklin declared he would re-evaluate his will. Veronica asserted Simone had chosen the wrong family. I shook my head. Emotional blackmail, the final refuge of those bereft of sound arguments. Precisely, Marcus concurred. But it proved ineffective. Simone remained resolute. I did as well. They left the restaurant without a farewell, without a backward glance. And honestly, Mum, I experienced an immense sense of relief, as if a substantial burden had been lifted. That is because it was, I informed him. You have shed the weight of living under their expectations, under their control. Now, You are free to construct your life according to your own design, not as they decree. Thank you, Mum, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for your actions last night. I understand the difficulty and the awkwardness, but we needed to witness it. I needed to understand their true character, and Simone needed to see that an alternative mode of existence, a more authentic and sincere one, was possible. You are most welcome, my son. I merely acted upon my convictions. There is one more matter, Marcus added. Simone wishes to visit you. She desires to offer her apologies in person and to converse with you, not as a daughter-in-law seeking to impress, but as an individual striving for personal growth. What are your thoughts? I considered this for a moment. Inform her that she is welcome, but not immediately. Allow her a few days to process, to thoughtfully consider what she wishes to articulate. Apologies offered hastily are superficial. Those that are delayed are genuine. I shall inform her, Marcus promised. Mum, one final question. How are you faring after all of this? How do you feel? I gazed out the window. The sun had fully ascended, marking the official commencement of the day. I am well, I replied, more than well. I am at peace, for I have finally expressed all that needed to be said, and I harbour no regrets. I'm delighted to hear that, Marcus said. I love you. I love you too, I responded. Rest well. I will see you soon. I ended the call, finished my coffee, and rose. I decided to engage in an activity I had long neglected. A leisurely, aimless walk, allowing my thoughts to wander freely. I donned comfortable attire, old jeans, a simple top, and well-worn sneakers. Grabbing my keys, I stepped outside. The streets teemed with life. Families strolling, children playing, couples holding hands, vendors offering their wares. The aroma of freshly baked bread permeated the air. I walked through a nearby park and found a bench, observing the passing crowds. It struck me then. Most of these individuals likely possessed limited financial resources. They lived frugally, toiled diligently, and navigated daily challenges. Yet they smiled, embraced one another, and found joy in the present moment. I then contemplated Veronica and Franklin, with their vast wealth, properties, travels, and jewels. Were they truly happy, or were they perpetually engaged in a futile attempt to validate themselves, to fill an internal void with material possessions, to purchase worth, respect, and affection, commodities that are fundamentally unbuyable? An elderly woman joined me on the bench. Good morning, she offered with a smile. Good morning, I returned. A beautiful day, isn't it? She commented. Indeed, very beautiful, I concurred, nodding. She produced a piece of bread from her bag and began scattering it for the pigeons. I come here every Sunday, she confided. It is my moment of quietude before the week's demands resume. I understand that sentiment, I replied. I too required a moment of respite. A challenging week? She inquired. Something of that nature, I answered. More accurately, a rather demanding night, she acknowledged wisely. Sometimes a single evening can alter everything. You are correct, I murmured. May I offer a piece of unsolicited counsel? Please do, I encouraged, smiling. She gestured towards the pigeons. Observe those birds. Some are larger, some smaller. Some possess resplendent plumage, while others appear rather dishevelled. Yet they all partake of the same sustenance. They occupy the same space harmoniously. None presumes superiority over another. That is a noble metaphor, I remarked. It is not a metaphor, she countered. It is the truth. Humans are unique in their capacity to invent artificial hierarchies and quantify value based on external markers. Pigeons do not engage in such practices. They simply exist. We would do well to emulate them. I smiled broadly. You are entirely correct. I should offer instruction to certain individuals I know. She chuckled. My dear child, at my age, I no longer provide lessons. I merely observe and share my insights. However, most individuals are disinclined to listen. They are too preoccupied with haste, acquisition, and competition, failing to recognize that ultimately we all converge at the same destination. With or without wealth, adorned or unadorned, possessing or lacking property, we all ultimately return to dust. How philosophical, I observed. How realistic, she corrected. I have lived 82 years. I have witnessed the full spectrum of human experience. And I can assure you, the most profoundly unhappy individuals I have encountered were those who possessed the most, for their desire for more was insatiable. They were perpetually engaged in rivalry, in comparison, and they departed this life without ever truly living, without truly loving, without truly being. Her words resonated deeply within me, as if she had articulated a pre-existing unspoken knowledge. Thank you, I expressed, for sharing that wisdom. She patted my hand. You are most welcome, child. And remember this, your material possessions or lack thereof are secondary. What truly matters is how you treat others, for that is what endures. That is what transcends. It is the sole legacy of true value. She slowly rose, tidied her empty bag, and offered a farewell wave. Have a most pleasant Sunday. And you as well, I replied. I watched her depart, a small woman stooped with age, attired in simple garments and worn footwear, yet possessing more profound wisdom than all the Veronicas and Franklins in existence combined. A deep sense of gratitude washed over me. Gratitude for that chance encounter, for that timely reminder, for that potent and irrefutable truth. I remained on the bench for some time longer, reflecting, contemplating, processing the entirety of the recent events, and I arrived at a definitive conclusion. I regretted nothing, not a single word, not a single action. For every step I had taken the previous evening was not only necessary, but liberating and fundamentally honest. And honesty, even when it inflicts pain, invariably represents the correct course of action. 3 days elapsed before Simone appeared at my doorstep. 3 days of quiet introspection and reflection. When the doorbell chimed on that Wednesday afternoon, I knew her arrival was imminent. I opened the door. She stood before me, stripped of artifice, her hair gathered in a simple knot, clad in unassuming denim and a plain shirt. No adornments graced her, no elevated footwear, a picture of vulnerability, of raw authenticity, a stark contrast to the persona I'd encountered at the restaurant. Mother-in-law, she murmured, her voice subdued, a tentative request to enter. I yielded, stepping aside. Please. She moved with a hesitant grace, her gaze sweeping across my humble abode, appraising my apartment with fresh eyes, the uncluttered living space, the modest furnishings, the walls devoid of ostentatious decoration. I gestured towards the sofa, and she sank onto it. I took a seat opposite, allowing silence to settle, granting her the space to compose her thoughts. I don't know how to begin, she confessed at last. Begin wherever feels right for you, I offered gently. She inhaled deeply. I've come to offer more than just words of regret. I need to explain the origins of my parents' nature and the reasons for my protracted silence. I listened, offering no interruption. Simone's voice, now tinged with fragility, continued. My parents endured extreme poverty in a distant, small village. Life there lacked basic amenities like electricity and running water. From childhood, they toiled in the fields. They witnessed firsthand the toll of hardship, seeing their own parents succumb to illness due to a scarcity of medical care and funds. Hunger was a constant companion, suffering a daily reality. This forged in them an unshakable resolve. They would never endure such destitution again. They were determined to escape, no matter the cost. I acknowledged her words with a nod. That provides significant context. They toiled relentlessly, Simone elaborated. Every coin was meticulously saved. They sought new opportunities abroad, embarking on a new life. Franklin, my father, built his enterprise from nothing, truly from the ground up. And once prosperity arrived, the memory of their past struggles never faded. That's why they speak of it so incessantly. It's why they gauge everything against that benchmark. For them, financial security equated to survival. It represented a bulwark against returning to that desolate past. It's understandable, Senor, I commented. Trauma can profoundly shape individuals. Simone nodded in agreement. But that doesn't absolve them of their treatment of you. I understand. And I want you to know that I bore witness to it all. Every cutting remark, every dismissive glance, every indignity. My silence stemmed from a lifelong habit of acquiescence. I learned to remain quiet, to accept, to let them dictate every facet of my life, because they instilled in me that defiance was akin to disloyalty, to ingratitude. A realization dawned in her eyes. And now, she continued, I finally grasp my error. Love is not about dominion. Family is not about unquestioning obedience. I can hold affection for them while disagreeing with their actions. Marcus helped me see this. You helped me see it. That evening at the restaurant, when you revealed your true self, when you confronted them with the truth, it was as if a veil was lifted from my eyes. Simone dabbed at her eyes. I always sensed an underlying wrongness. I instinctively felt their methods of evaluating people were flawed, but I rationalized it as my own oversensitivity, my lack of worldly understanding. However, your actions illuminated another possibility, a way of living where financial standing doesn't dictate inherent worth, where gentleness is a form of fortitude, where genuine character is the true measure of wealth. I took a sip of water. Simone, I began, my intention that night wasn't to alter your perspective. It was a matter of self-preservation, of understanding the dynamics at play. I understand, she replied, and I'm grateful for your unvarnished honesty. It was a salvation for me. It spared me from mirroring my mother's path, from perpetuating a damaging cycle, from passing on to my own future children the notion that human value is tied to possessions. That is not the future I desire. I refuse to become that. And your parents? I inquired. What is their disposition now? Simone exhaled a weary sigh. Furious, wounded, utterly humiliated. Veronica hasn't spoken to me in 3 days. Franklin sent me a curt message stating I had betrayed him, that I had prioritized outsiders over my own kin. He predicted I would come to regret my decision. She paused, a faint smile touching her lips. And the peculiar thing is, I feel no remorse. I feel liberated. That's a positive sign, I affirmed. It indicates you've made the correct choice. Simone nodded. Marcus and I have established clear boundaries. We've conveyed that they are welcome in our lives, but only if they demonstrate respect for us, for our choices. If they cease their attempts to manipulate us through financial leverage or emotional coercion. And should they prove incapable of this, a more distant relationship will be their only option. How did they react to that declaration? I asked. Poorly, Simone responded. Veronica declared we were everything to her. Franklin threatened to disinherit me, to sever all financial support, as though that were our sole motivation, as though our love for them hinged on their wealth. And in that moment, I recognized the profoundness of their delusion. They truly believe their value resides in their bank accounts. It's a tragic reality, I observed. Indeed, profoundly sad, Simone concurred. They possess vast fortunes, yet find no joy. Their existence is consumed by acquisition, by competition, by constant display. They fail to ever pause and question their own happiness, their inner peace, the quality of their human connections. Their victory is counted in assets, yet within they are hollow. She was silent for a beat, then her gaze met mine with unwavering intensity. Mother-in-law, I have a request for you. Speak freely. I wish to learn from your example. I want you to impart your wisdom on how to live with genuine dignity, how to cultivate wealth without the need for ostentatious displays, how to find serenity amidst turmoil, how to possess strength without resorting to cruelty. Because that night I observed in you something absent in my parents. I witnessed grace, I perceived true power. I saw a woman who commanded respect without raising her voice. A gentle smile graced my lips. Simone, the ability to cultivate those qualities isn't something I can impart directly. It's a journey of lived experience, of navigating mistakes, of enduring setbacks and finding the resilience to rise again. My role can only be to share my own journey, to acknowledge that the path is seldom easy. You will undoubtedly face criticism, judgment, individuals who question your divergence from the norm. But if you remain true to your core principles, if you live by your own values, you will discover an inner peace. And that peace, my dear, is an immeasurable treasure, far surpassing any material wealth. I am committed to trying, Simone stated with conviction. I aspire to evolve, not solely for Marcus, but for my own well-being, because I deserve a life free from relentless pressure, from the compulsion to impress, from the pervasive fear of inadequacy. Then embrace that aspiration, I encouraged her, but do so incrementally. Begin by scrutinizing your routines, your expenditures, your underlying motivations. Before each decision, ask yourself, is this for my authentic self or for the perception of others? Does this bring me genuine contentment or merely an outward show? Simone absorbed my words, mentally cataloguing them. And my parents, she ventured, do you believe they will ever experience a transformation? I met her gaze with candid sincerity. I cannot say. True change necessitates an acknowledgement of a problem, and they see no fault within themselves. They perceive the world as flawed, individuals as ungrateful, themselves as victims. Until that perception shifts, transformation remains improbable. However, you possess the capacity for change. You can disrupt this inherited pattern. I will, she vowed, with Marcus by my side, and with your guidance, I hope. You don't require my guidance, Simone, I reassured her. You possess an innate inner compass, that quiet voice that discerns right from wrong. It's the voice you've suppressed for years to appease your parents. Listen to it. Trust it implicitly. Follow its direction. Simone wiped away the lingering moisture from her eyes. Thank you, mother-in-law, for everything, for your unwavering patience, for your forthrightness, for not abandoning hope in us. There's no need for thanks, I responded. Just one promise, if you will. When you have children, instill in them the profound value of human beings, not their monetary worth. Teach them empathy, humility, and compassion. These are virtues that carry no price tag, yet their worth is immeasurable. I promise, Simone declared with resolute sincerity. I pledge it with my entire being. We embraced. It was a genuine, warm, and candid embrace, devoid of pretense or masks. Two souls connecting on a purely human level. Simone departed an hour later, her demeanor noticeably lighter, a sense of liberation about her, and a flicker of hope shining in her eyes. I closed the door behind her. Retiring to my sofa, I surveyed my modest apartment, a quiet smile gracing my lips. This was sufficient. This was everything, a sanctuary of sincerity, a life lived authentically. relationships built on genuine connection. I desired nothing more. I had never needed more. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. Mom, Simone shared details of her visit. Thank you for welcoming her, for listening, for giving her a chance. I love you more than words can convey. My simple reply was, I love you too, son. Always. I set the phone aside. Settling by the window, I watched as the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. In that tranquil moment, a fundamental truth resonated deeply within me. True wealth isn't measured by possessions, but by the capacity to savor what one has. The depth of one's inner peace, the quality of one's authentic connections, and the pride one feels when looking in the mirror. Veronica and Franklin commanded fortunes, yet I possessed this profound serenity, this unvarnished authenticity, this pure and unwavering love for my son. And that, I realized, rendered me infinitely richer than they. I never again felt the need to feign poverty. I had learned all that was necessary. I had witnessed what needed witnessing, and I had liberated myself from what needed liberating. Veronica and Franklin continued on their chosen path, wealthy in currency, impoverished in spirit. But that was no longer my concern. I had spoken my truth, established my boundaries, and safeguarded my inner peace. For the first time in a considerable while, the pretense was gone. I was simply a mother, an executive, a woman, a survivor, a fighter, rich in every sense that truly mattered, and that was more than enough. It was everything. Did you enjoy the narrative? And from which city are you listening? Let's engage in the comment section. If this story resonated with you, your support through a super thanks would be invaluable, enabling me to continue sharing such narratives. My heartfelt gratitude for your kind encouragement. I eagerly await your thoughts on this story. On the screen, you'll find 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. My channel offers a wealth of additional content. Please remember to subscribe. I look forward to our next encounter in a life story, conveyed with love and respect.